God and Other Delicacies has a weekly newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, email me at godsdelicateshow@gmail.com and I'll put you on the list. Hello, everyone. Welcome to God and Other Delicacies. I am Nicholas D'Augusto. Thank you all for being here. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Sherri Shepherd to the show. Sherri is an actor, comedian, and television host who has appeared in countless programs and films, ranging from her time as a co-host on The View to her current gig as Principal Paula Madison on the Netflix comedy series Mr. Iglesias. She was unmasked on The Masked Singer. She played Angie Jordan on 30 Rock. She's the host of the Best Ever Trivia Show, and she's constantly touring the country doing stand-up. But to me, she will always be the delightfully afflicted Anne Flatch on our NBC comedy series Trial and Error. Maybe the only time Sherri has ever sat down in her life is when she was forced to watch me do courtroom scenes all day in oppressive heat. Her thanks? Coming on my show to get real about God. Believe me, I know she's up for it. Welcome to the show, Sherri!
Nick!
Sherri!
I am so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. I told you this before you came in this room. I told you on the text, I'm honored to have you here. Thank you very much for being here.
The pleasure is all mine, and I'm excited that you asked me.
Oh my gosh.
This is fun.
It's a
because
joy.
You know what this reminds me of is when we would be doing Trial and Error and we would have a little break while somebody else was either shooting or they were, fixing the lights, and we would sit in our chairs and you'd have your lunch in your little lunch sack and you'd have your bottled water. No, it wasn't like this big Tupperware container.
Right.
Your water, and you'd bring it
My
with
big
you.
Jug.
Your jug of water.
It was an Algene bottle, yeah.
And we would sit there and we would just talk, and we would just have these great talks.
Yeah, well, Jeff often said that one of his favorite things about the show, of which he loved, Jeff Astroff, by the way, the writer, creator of the show, who has been on this show before, would often say that like one of his favorite things about the show was that everybody on the show was not only kind and loving to each other, but they were people who were actually of different faiths who cared about thinking about religion and thinking about bigger questions about family, a lot of family-oriented people on the show. So we had a lot to share. I mean, you and I were just talking about how difficult the time you had in Canada was, being away from your son. And I had a young son, but yours was a different situation because Jeffrey was older. Mine was still just a little baby at that time. So it was hard for me, hard for him too, but he didn't quite understand. But Jeffrey was old enough to understand that you were far away. So that stuff is hard.
That was a rough one, being in Canada. I was fulfilled because I loved doing Trial and Error. It's heartwarming to me when people come up and say, I loved you on Trial and Error. You had all those disorders. And they would say episodes that they liked. And I just didn't realize so many people watch the show. Now they play it on a plane. I've had people wake me up and say, you look like that girl on this show that I'm watching, which is Trial and Error. But it was still hard because Jeffrey having his special needs and being back in LA. And for me, I would leave every weekend and go to LA.
You're a single mother.
Being a single mom. So as soon as we finished on Friday, I was on a plane.
Yeah, it was hard for you.
To LA, you remember I had to do a birthday party with Jeffrey. And then I would come back and shoot the show. I
couldn't believe it. I was always just, we would talk about it on set. I was just like, I don't know how she is doing it. I mean, you were really, I went home on every other weekend.
Right, every other weekend.
But you just had more kind of, you had more travel to do, and it was.
I was doing a radio show at the same time from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. Then coming and doing a Trial and Error. But the great thing about it was, I loved what I did. So it was never a tiring feeling in the sense of I hate my job and oh my God, I got to go to this job. I love what I do. So I'm so thankful that if I'm going to be tired, it's because I've done something that I loved.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad.
Well, it was a beautiful memory, it was a beautiful time, it was a beautiful experience. And it's the ones that we're very thankful for as we talk about. And it's a credit to that show that I'm here with you now, a couple years after we finished shooting it, and I could text you and be like, would you be interested in this? And you totally were down to come down. And I've had that same experience now with Michael Hitchcock and Amanda Payton and Jeff Astroff. So I'm very thankful for it. And So you're just super busy. I keep referencing this. You're always, you are such a wonderful, you're inspiring, you're proactive, you're very resourceful. I've told you that, you're just and you're very talented. You're multidisciplined.
Thank you.
So when are you touring, for instance, like your comedy next?
Oh, wow. We're starting our second. Now, I go on the road and I headline about once or twice a month, but I'm also starting a comedy. Well, this is my second year in a comedy tour with Nene Leakes and Lonnie Love from the talk show The Real, and some other comics. It's called Ladies Night Night Out.
I remember you doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. So they just
you flew to DC for this.
Oh, that's right. I left Canada.
That was another thing you had to do at that time.
Flew to
you had
DC.
this huge show in DC.
That's right. It was like 7,000 people.
Yeah, it was big.
It was huge. So we're doing another one. So we have about 13 cities that we're going to do the comedy, which I'm 13
what coast?
Cities.
Or where? All across the country?
We're going to Texas. We're going to New Orleans. Cool. We're going to DC, New York. We did LA last year, so no LA, but just all over the country.
Yeah,
and it will be, one night in big arenas, 5,000 to 7,000 seats.
That's amazing.
And I'm really excited.
And do you each do a half an hour, 45?
No, we do about 20 minutes.
Okay,
so it's a few of us.
Yeah, because there's a handful. So when is it again? When is that tour?
It starts
happening
February.
Again?
Starts February 4th.
Are you going to be doing LA?
I don't think I'm going to be doing LA this time around. Maybe later in the year.
Okay.
Because they're adding dates.
Okay.
So this is a really big tour for us.
It's a huge 13 shows is a lot of shows.
13 shows. Yeah, we were selling out before. So now, and they're talking about going to Dubai and and it's really great because it's
Can
one
I
night.
come?
Yes, you can. Well, yeah, you're not. You know what? If you come with me, you're gonna be like, I miss Hark. Oh,
that's true.
I miss my son.
No doubt. No doubt about that.
So it's like one-nighters, which is really great because normally when I go in headline, I have to do an entire weekend. I have to do 4 shows, 2 shows on a Friday, 2 shows on a Saturday, and then I have to come in the night before, the day before to do press.
Right.
And then I leave. So I'm gone 4 days. So this tour is great for me as a single mom because it's a one-nighter. I go in Friday, I perform, I come back Saturday.
Right. That's cool. That's cool. Sherri.
But I love it.
That's so great. You're so fun. You're so talented. I love hearing about you. It makes me tired hearing your stories. Makes me tired hearing about your schedule, but I love it. So I wanted to ask you what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, this is really great because I cooked for Jeffrey, my 14-year-old, which I love. And I don't like cooking, but I like to cook for my son. And so I made him, and my nephew was over too. So I made scrambled eggs with a little bit of cheese, salt and pepper, and then I made pancakes because Jeffrey loves pancakes. So I made pancakes and I made grits. Now, there's 2 ways to make grits. You can do it with salt and pepper, and that's like the dinner grits, or the breakfast grits you do with butter and sugar.
Okay.
But because I've been off sugar since March 2018,
I know. I remember. I was going to ask you about this.
So I did it with salt and pepper, and then I had fried some chicken. So I used the leftover chicken.
Man, that sounds amazing.
And it was really good. Did I make anything else? And then he had water because he's not drinking enough water. So I gave him water. And that was his breakfast. And he said to me, he goes, Ma, he sounds like Shaq and Peter Brady from His Time to Change. And he goes, Ma, this was really quite good. And I said, do you know why it was good? He's like, yeah, because you put a lot of love in it. And that's because I love making breakfast for him.
Yeah.
So now I made me 2 keto pancakes.
I was going to say, are you still keeping yourself on the straight and narrow with your diet? You don't eat the things that Jeffrey eats, right? You cook different meals for yourself.
Yeah, so I didn't do the grits. I don't do the fried chicken. I did keto pancakes, even though I'm not on keto, but I did keto pancakes and I did eggs. And that was it. So I'm still off sugar.
I mean, congrats. I mean, you look great.
You remember when I stopped doing sugar?
I remember, yeah.
Oh, my God.
It was hard. It was so especially
hard.
We're on set, too. I mean, come on.
It was so hard because there was so
nothing
many
but sugar on set.
Sugar and desserts. And I couldn't go out to... Remember when we got to Canada, everybody went to dinner to see each other, and I couldn't go. And I remember Jeff Ascroft
You were sending pictures of spinach.
I did. I would do spinach all the time. You remember? But I remember
like steaming spinach at home, and we'd be like, we're drinking wine at the restaurant or whatever.
And I remember I missed the first dinner with you guys, the cast, because I just couldn't go out to eat because I just stopped doing sugar.
Right.
Like only 3 days prior. So I had to stay in for a minute.
Yeah, you were really, I mean, look, you took it very seriously because you're still doing it. You know, it was clear that you had made a lifestyle choice.
Right.
And you made it work, and it was very difficult, but you committed to it. And we happened to be there at that moment.
Right,
that happened to be the moment while you're doing it. But you've kept it, you know, and it sounds like it's been, I mean, I'm sure it's not easy, but it sounds like it's been really rewarding for you.
Well, it's been life-changing, I have to say, Nick.
That's great.
I don't
Tell
like
me
to
more.
beat anybody over the head with anything because you have to come to decisions on your own.
For sure, but I love hearing this stuff.
I mean, it just was like I realized I waited later in life to have Jeffrey. And I said, oh my gosh, my mom passed away when she was 41 years old.
Wow.
41 or 42. So I was in my early 20s. And that left a big hole in my life because I had to take care of my younger sisters. And I said,
how many younger sisters did you have?
I have two. And one was still in high school when she passed away.
Wow.
And I said, I don't want to do that to Jeffrey because Jeffrey's not, 41 years old.
Sherri, I'm going to be 41 next year.
I know, isn't it crazy?
I'm going to be 40 very soon. That's
when I hit
terrifying
40,
to me.
I was terrified. I just started the view. I was terrified.
Right.
Because I just got
it's like
diabetes.
traumatic. It's probably like getting... Oh, and then you got diagnosed with something that was that something
That's
your mother
when my
dealt
mom
with?
passed away,
and she
diabetic
didn't know enough
complications.
about it at the time?
Well, she did, but she didn't take care of herself.
Oh.
She just didn't take care of herself. And so when I got diagnosed, I was scared to death because I wasn't taking care of myself. And I think I told you this a long time ago. When they diagnosed me, I had this image of Jeffrey at 5 years old, and he was clutching his teddy bear in the dark, and he was crying, and he was trying to figure out where heaven was because that's where everybody said mommy was.
Oh my God.
And
this is like a nightmare you had or a dream?
It was
or
just
something?
like this
Or you
image.
you were just like saw it in the daytime, whatever. It came to you.
It was kind of zoned out because when I had gotten the diagnosis of diabetes, it scared me so badly because I wasn't taking care of myself.
You were like in shock.
I immediately went, this is what I did. I went to Pancake House and I had all you could eat pancakes with maple syrup. And then I had about an hour later, entire pasta, a pasta dish, a big old bowl of pasta. So my blood sugar probably shot up to maybe 200 or 300. And so because my blood sugar shot up, I kind of zoned out.
Wow.
And in that zoning out is when I got that like image. And it really made me do a lifestyle change. And then as I just kind of evolved, I said, you know what else is stopping you, Sherri, from going to the next level? And also Jeffrey had said to me, I was stressing out and I was eating a candy bar. This is fast forward years later. Because obviously I made it past my 40s, so I was okay.
Yeah, well,
but we were
thankfully.
sitting in the car and Jeffrey says, Mommy. And I said, what? And he said, if you die, who's going to be my bodyguard? And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, if you die, who's going to take care of me? And that was the impetus to stop sugar.
Wow.
Because I said, oh my gosh, if something happens to me, who's going to take care of Jeffrey? And so that was so when I think about, oh my gosh, I would love a cheesecake for Thanksgiving or Christmas, I have to think about the why of why I stopped doing sugar. And sugar for me, it would, some of the side effects of sugar are I would get cranky. It would raise my blood sugar. I was just like, trying to make it through the day, tired. And when I took that out, I have all this energy.
Right.
My mental clarity, my focus is just like through the roof. I'm more patient with Jeffrey. So I can see where taking sugar out of my life is beneficial.
That's amazing too, right? Being more patient for your child. That's something I've really gotten into. I mean, I didn't used to drink a lot, but I've always had drinks around. Mm-hmm. I mean, since I was young, since I was way too young. I mean, like you grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, there's not a lot else to do. So I just get hammered.
Especially when it's snowing.
Especially when you got older brothers who are willing to buy it for you. Sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening. But not like they don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like it was part of my cultural life, And then, but I mean, even just having like one drink at the end of the night now, like I wake up that much more annoyed, that just a headache maybe or something, and they require so much. They need so much from you right away at the beginning of the day, and it makes me feel bad. I go, oh, this isn't your fault, man, but I'm annoyed now because I didn't take care of myself and prepare myself for you the right way.
Absolutely.
And so now I connect with that.
That's exactly what it is. I felt like with Jeffrey, I'm taking this out on you because I'm trying to escape from something.
Right.
And I said, I got to stop. And I just said, you know what? It's really important that he's 14. He hasn't learned everything that he can learn, and I'm here to teach it to him. This is one of my assignments from God, is this little boy. And I just kind of felt God saying to me, I'm really spiritual like that. It's not that he talks to me, but maybe he does, because he sounds like Barry White. And I kind of felt that he was saying,
that's a great God.
That sounds like Barry White. I mean, so smooth and swagalicious. But I kind of felt like God was saying, I don't want you to be sick. I don't want you to go the route of your mom. I want you to be here. But there's some stuff you got to do too.
Okay. Well, you have perfectly segued. We've kind of talked a little longer than I normally do, but it's just so nice to see you again. We jumped in, but this is the main question. We kind of, like I said, we got into a couple of subjects already, talking about God right here and your faith, and talking about your mother a little bit, things I want to get back to. But the main question that usually kicks everything off, if I don't know people, is how and when were you introduced to the idea of God?
Wow. I come from a very spiritual family. Like, my grandmother was total Baptist church, jumping in the aisle, screaming, wig coming off. I remember so many times her wig would come off when she was getting the Holy Ghost. And when I was a little girl, like
that's
5,
amazing.
Leah, I couldn't articulate this, nor would I have wanted to say this to my grandmother, but I would always be thinking, when her wig came off, why don't you put it on better? Like, why don't you? I didn't know about bobby pins and stuff like that. I was just like, there's got to be a way that you can tighten up this thing on your head, because every time you jump up and get the Holy Ghost, it comes off. I never understood that. And when I get to heaven, hopefully I'm going to be there. I will ask her.
Yeah.
But
that's great.
My grandmother always had us in church.
Where was she from? Now, you're from Chicago, right?
Everybody's from Chicago.
Oh, everybody's from Chicago.
Everybody's from Chicago. And we went to Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church.
All right.
And so, and the thing about church, black churches, Nick, you go at about 9:00, and we would go to little Sunday school, but church lasted all day. Like, they had kitchens in the basement, and you would go eat dinner there. So you'd be there from 9 to like 6:00. It was church. Everybody knew on Sunday, you don't watch TV, no cartoons, no secular music. It was all about God.
But what do you mean you don't leave?
No, you're always there. It was, and ask me what we did from 9 to 6. I have no idea, but I remember my grandmother taking that little piece of fat under your arm, pinching it.
Yeah.
And we were not allowed to talk. We had to listen to the pastor. He screamed every 30 seconds, and the Lord says, So that was when I was first introduced
he's
to
not
God.
Preaching all day, right? He's only preaching for maybe
It was
portions.
Different times he was preaching. Then we were in Sunday school. Then we had to practice in the choir. Then we would go get something to eat. Then we had to go back up to a service. Then my grandmother was part of the mother's board. That was the older women. We had to go sit with her while she had her mother's board meeting. So we were there all day. And of course, me and my sister, we were pinching each other. I would spit on her, and we would write on each other's Bible. And I'd go, I'm going to kick your butt when we get home. And I'd write it like in Hezekiah in the scriptures. But it was a good time. Wow. And that's when I got introduced to
So that's beautiful.
God.
So you have your grandmother, right? Now, did you have your grandfather as well?
My grandfather was in the church.
And then that's your mother's parents?
That was my father's parents.
Okay.
Because I was closer to my father's side.
Okay.
But then my mother started studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, so this is so good, but I want to know, your mother died at 41. Did your father live for a long time?
My father is still alive.
He's still alive. That's
daddy
nice.
Is still alive.
That's
he
nice.
Still signs my headshots. Sherri Shepherd's dad.
Oh my gosh, how sweet.
Yes, so he's still here.
So he's still here, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, but then your mother, they were married.
They were divorced.
Oh,
when she passed away, they were divorced. So my dad's been married to the same woman for, 23, 25 years.
Okay, but after the divorce, your mother started to go a different way with her faith.
Well, she started when they were married. She started studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of went that way from 11 till about 16.
Would your dad go to the Baptist church and your mother would go?
Yeah, my dad he was going to the Baptist church. Then he started going to the Kingdom Hall with my mom.
Wow.
And the reason why I got out of the Jehovah's Witness faith, because we used to go knocking from door to door with our watchshowers and awakes on Saturday. Wow. You know, you come to the door on Saturday, and I would say to our listeners, if a Jehovah's Witness comes to your door, please stop hiding behind the curtains, because we can see you. That's my public service announcement. We can see you.
Thank you.
And but I got out of that faith because my dad was diehard Baptist. and he just wasn't with the faith, and he got disfellowship, which is kind of like a excommunication. And the elders of the congregation told us that we couldn't talk to my dad anymore. Like we had to like totally cut him off.
I mean, I knew this about, I know another person in my life who's a Jehovah's Witness or was raised Jehovah's Witness.
I think we had talked about
yeah,
that.
Yeah, because we've talked about this. This is one, obviously one of the many reasons I was excited to have you on the show.
Yeah.
To learn more about this, but
yeah,
he had a problem with like, he left when he was young and then his parents, didn't communicate with him for years.
And that's a hard thing.
And they're still not supposed to.
But now they do.
They figured out how to like kind of a little bit,
Because it's very hard to excommunicate somebody that you love. Like my bestest friend in the world, we've been best friends since 6th grade. She's still a Jehovah's Witness, and she doesn't advertise that she's still friends with me, but she is because we love each other so much.
Right.
But that was devastating to have to tell my dad we couldn't talk to him. And I remember my father had moved us from the city of Chicago. We lived in a really bad neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. And he moved us to the suburbs because he wanted us to have a better life and in a better school. And he worked 3 jobs. He sold Mary Kay on the side. And my daddy
was selling Mary Kay.
He sold Mary Kay.
What a dude, man.
And my daddy was one of the top salesmen.
What an upstanding dude.
Well, he wasn't that good. All he did was put electric blue eyeshadow on all the women, and he sold that stuff like crazy. They loved my dad because my dad, you could look like a couch, and my dad made you feel like you were the most beautiful woman in the world. But he sold Mary Kay. He worked as a waiter at a restaurant called Sambo's Restaurant, and Sambo's is not out in business anymore because I didn't know this, but at the time they had little black babies with big red lips all over the wall, and it was Sambo. And now that would be racist and offensive, but back then it was just like, wow, those babies got big lips. I didn't know that. So, but he was a waiter. We moved to the suburbs, and it was very racist. So he got called the N-word all the time, but he stayed at that job, and he turned people's hearts around because my father was so just gregarious. And people who were racist at the beginning ended up wanting to sit in Lawrence's section because it was so great. He made so many tips. He became the manager. Then he also worked in food services at Northwest Hospital in Schaumburg, Illinois. So he had 3 jobs. He moved us to the suburbs so he can get a better life. He would have a hole in his shoe while he was a waiter. But you're telling me that I can't talk to my dad when I know that my dad was doing everything he could to provide a better life for us. So my mom, when she took us to where he was a waiter, now at Denny's, my 2 sisters said, "Daddy, we can't talk to you anymore." And I remember my father breaking down crying at the restaurant. And I said, well, I can't, this is not love. I can't. So that's kind of what made me be very disillusioned with that religious organization. Now, the people are very nice. I don't believe in that way. I'm a Christian now. I guess I'm non-denominational, but I got saved in a Pentecostal church, so I do speak in tongues.
Whoa.
I can still speak in tongues.
Whoa, Sherri.
So in every once in a while.
Sherri, you are the best. I love this so much.
But so that was when I was a Jehovah's Witness. But I'm still even though I'm not, I go to church, I have Jeffrey in church, I still have my faith because that is what sustains me through life.
Okay, this is so good. And it's the time where I have to take the first break. But I kind of want to jump right back in with this stuff about your dad because that's such an inspiring part of the story. There's so much more to learn. We'll be right back with Sherri Shepherd. Okay, everybody, we're back with Sherri. So I'm really intrigued, I guess is one word, but just like it's a really compelling story to hear about such an amazing, look, I mean, everybody has their faults. I'm sure your father wasn't an angel all the time. I'm not an angel. Yeah. No one is. Mm-hmm. But I mean, a guy who was the first of his generation to, break his family into an area that was clearly not going to be initially very receptive to him being there. He's getting the N-word and stuff like this. He's fighting racism. He's working 3 jobs, one that's a stereotypically female profession, right? So at that time in particular, there was probably some stigma about seeing a man, let alone a black man,
exactly,
who's going around the neighborhood, and he's breaking all these barriers, and then he starts. His wife takes a different turn religiously, and she feels so inspired by this path that she is okay with like stopping talking to her husband basically. And that's why they get a divorce.
Yeah.
And then you become caught in the middle.
Absolutely.
And then did you lead your younger sisters out of that? Or did they stay in it? I mean,
they stayed in it.
How long was this struggle, and how long did you become kind of daddy's girl then at that sense? Because, did you have to stop talking to your mom?
It's very funny. You're very receptive. You glean a lot from what I said, and you're pretty correct on a lot of it, Nick. So I'm really impressed.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was really, really difficult being the oldest and being caught between that, because there was no way I could stop talking to my dad. And I understood more than my sisters the sacrifices that my father had made for me. Right. Not only those sacrifices, my father always wanted to be in entertainment.
Yeah, right. He sounds like he was an incredibly, and no surprise, you probably get a lot from him, right? I mean, you're incredibly charming. You have this gregarious nature. You probably get it from him.
I feel like you know my life.
I'm just listening. I'm just listening.
You are really good.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just like my dad. And my dad, when he was in the service in Okinawa, he wasn't.
Wow, and he fought in the war too?
And he fought, but he didn't fight. He was in the entertainment division. He made people laugh. Somehow my daddy got into like doing plays and stand-up comedy for the troops. And
I could have done that. That would have been my...
Wouldn't that have been great?
Like, I could have been a soldier if that was my job.
Like your frontline stuff was like on stage.
Yeah.
I don't know what else he did. He didn't tell me, but all the pictures were him making the troops laugh.
Cool.
But he gave that up because my mom got pregnant with me, and then subsequently my sister, and he worked at a job that he did not like to raise us. And so I more than anybody appreciated, the sacrifices my father made. So that was very hard for me not to talk to him. So I kind of fell away. And then my mom was diagnosed with diabetes, and she wasn't taking care of herself. She was divorced. She was a single mom. We moved out here to California, which was very traumatic for me.
She took you and your sisters out to California?
She left my dad.
And your dad's in Chicago.
Oh, he cried. He was so close.
How old are you?
I was, we moved out here in my senior year of high school, which was so traumatic because all the cliques are formed. So I was 16.
Sherri,
it was horrible.
This is some tough high school years here for you.
Can I tell you? I think
please.
I was such a nerd, and I didn't have any friends. I had 2 friends. I had one friend who was a Prince lookalike. He was really weird, and he dressed like Prince every single day.
Right on. It sounds fun.
Andre Walker, that was his name. And one girl who just never smiled. She was like this goth girl. So I had a Prince lookalike and a goth girl. But I didn't have any friends because all of the cliques were already formed.
Right.
And I went to school with who is Lenny Kravitz's ex-wife, Zoe. She was Bill Cosby's daughter on The Cosby Show. I forget her name. If you remember it, tell me.
I don't remember her name right now. But
her daughter
wasn't she the one that had that famous photo of?
She did that movie, remember, with Mickey Rourke, and like her career went to the wayside. I'll remember her name. Lenny Kravitz's ex-wife, and their daughter is a beautiful actress right now. Come. She's married to Jason Momoa.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that wasn't
Lisa Bonet.
Yeah, Lisa Bonet.
Oh, geez, I felt like we were in a game
she was
show.
the one that had Lenny Kravitz's daughter. She was pregnant and did like a kind of like provocative photo. Like this was like a famous cultural photo,
back in the
right?
Day, yes.
Yeah.
Lisa Bonet graduated with me, and I remember she sent me a text, and she said, "I remember us graduating." And I'm like, "Oh my God, wasn't even an actress thing. You remember me?" She said, I made her laugh. But
good. I mean,
somebody
came by honestly.
Can you believe it? But it was very hard for me because we had moved out here. We didn't have any friends, and
that is a really hard thing to be dropped on you. And you're leaving your dad.
And I left my dad.
Come on, this is tough.
And
you're
mom.
The oldest, so you're trying to be strong, kind of for your family.
Trying to be strong for my sisters. But guess what? The shining light.
What?
We still were Jehovah's Witnesses. We went to the Kingdom Hall. Guess who I went to the Kingdom Hall with?
Who?
The Jackson family. So
no way.
Yes, I used to go to Bible study with Janet Jackson, Rebe Jackson, Michael Jackson, Marlon, And those were the ones that were still in the
My
house.
jaw is slapped ass fully down to my
Michael
shoes
Jackson
right now.
used to go out in field service. He would wear a disguise. He would wear a beard and a hat. He probably looked like a one of those Jewish men with the little
Right, yeah, with the
a Hasidic.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they're Hasidic
Yeah.
Jews, they're called.
right is what that's right.
Yes, but I think
the
that's
name
what
of
he
it.
kind of looked like. He would always remind me of that when he went out in field service. He'd wear a whole costume, and so it was LaToya and Janet and Reeve and Marlon, not Marlon, Randy, because those were the four that were still at the house.
And no one. So Michael Jackson is knocking on doors.
Michael Jackson was
dressed in
yes.
disguise.
Yes, can you believe it? He lived right, and this is a tripped out thing.
This is
I was so in love with Michael Jackson
so good.
that I would take the bus. He lived in Encino off of, I think it was like Havenhurst, his compound, and they still have their big mansion on Havenhurst. And I would take the bus and I would stay out there all night because I would see him at the Kingdom Hall, but you couldn't get close to him. He would sit in the library while we had the service upstairs. So it wasn't like I got to say, hey, Michael, how you doing? I just knew he was there. I would see Reeve and Janet and LaToya and all of them. But I would take the bus to his house and I would hang out all night long, just waiting for Michael to come out of the gates.
And little did you know, he was coming out of the gates dressed in different disguises all the time, and you never recognized him.
Yes. And field service, I should explain, if listeners don't know what field service is, that's when you go out and you're knocking on doors and you're.
And how
talking about
often
the
are you
Bible.
required to do that when you're a Jehovah's Witness? Like how many times a month, or is it, is it like multiple times a year?
Yeah,
or?
you have to put in a certain amount of hours. Now, I haven't been a witness for a long time. So when I was a witness, you had to, if you were, they called it a pioneer. And that's when you committed to a certain, like around 40 hours of going out.
So there were different levels.
Different levels. And so a family, we were really kind of expected to put in about 10 to 14 hours a month.
As a whole family, or each person is
as a whole family.
Okay.
Now, as you got older, they considered you individually. So as I got to be 13, it was like I clocked my own hours when I was a Jehovah's Witness. But that would mean that we would go out on Saturdays, like around 9 o'clock from 9 to 1.
Right.
And then, like on a Wednesday in the evening. And that's what it was. And I would just clock my hours in. And
Sherri.
it was very cool. And like I said, I got out of it. I kind of got disillusioned more so when my mom got sick. We stopped going. They were so sweet to her when she was really sick. They would come to the house and take care of her. But I just found more comfort going to church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you turn 18 relatively soon after you
Yeah.
move out here. Now at 18, do you start exerting your independence like right away? Or, when did you get out of being a witness? When did you officially like stop going?
I think when I was about 18 or 19.
Did you still
kinda
stay
stopped.
in the house or apartment with your mom and
I
sisters?
still stayed in the house and my mom was still going, and I just, she wasn't going to put me out. I still stayed in the house. My sisters were still going, and they kind of, once my mom passed away, they started going to church with me. But it was about 18 because I remember I was boy crazy and the elders of the congregation put me on like, it's a punishment, but it's called reproof. That's what it is. It's a private reproof where nobody in the congregation knows, and there's a public reproof. Like if you get pregnant or something like that, then they have to announce it to the congregation. So I was boy crazy, and they had put me on reproof, and they said I couldn't talk to boys for a length of time. And I was like, you got to be crazy. I can't talk to boys.
So what they're like, they give you a sticker. They're like, you're on reproof.
On reproof. They were like, you were just acting too wild and crazy, which
They're
made
like,
me
so
even
when
worse.
so when you're next to a boy, you can't talk.
You can't
to them.
talk to him. Yeah, because you got lust
Show
in
them
your heart.
sticker. Show them your reproof sticker.
90 days then.
Sherri, so what? You're just basically like kind of silently raise a finger to them or something, or what? Like,
Yeah, I said it with my eyes.
Did you try to like be a good
you
like
kidding
witness
me?
at the time? No, you just sort of like turned away from it.
I was like
right?
a preacher's kid. I was so rebellious. I was so
good.
rebellious. And as soon as I stopped being a Jehovah's Witness and my mom was getting sick at the time, I just was out there. I was out there like crazy. And I had to get reeled back in.
So, okay. So you leave the witnesses around you're 18 or 19 or something.
Right.
Do you get to go back to Chicago and see your dad? Do you go straight back? Do you
I would go back and see my dad every few years. He had gotten married, and I would go back every few years. I was starting to do stand-up maybe around 23.
Did you go to college? Did you study?
I didn't go to college. That was one of the big things, being a Jehovah's Witness. In the congregation that we were in, they kind of discouraged you from going to a 4-year college or university.
Unreal.
Because they felt, now it may have changed now, but they felt that the end of the world was coming. And it's in lingo of a Jehovah's Witness.
I totally forgot that this would be like the thing. I'm sorry. Keep going.
So it's the end of the world, and it's called, it was like, the new system would be coming. And, a new system would be, heaven on earth, where it was no evil and everything was good. And this old system would pass away. And so we always thought the end of the world was coming. So they kind of discourage you from going to college because they felt like you should be out in field service. If I'm talking to you, instead of being in college, Nick, I should be talking to you about being a Jehovah's Witness, so that when Armageddon, that's what it is, Armageddon, when Armageddon came, and that's Armageddon is when Jesus comes with his warrior, the angels, and this old earth is gone. They would just destroy this old earth. And the people who were witnesses would go on to be in the new system, and those people that had an open heart would go on to be in the new system. That's what I was supposed to be doing with you.
You're supposed to be saving every single person.
Saving everybody.
Every single day.
Not going to college to be a lawyer or a veterinarian.
Because what does it matter? Like you're just preparing for a time that's not going to come.
That's not going to come.
Because this whole thing is going
and
to
so
hell in a handbasket, and you better get saved.
And you better get saved. So and if you Google it, a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses will talk about how they were discouraged from going to college. And my grades were excellent, exemplary. I was an A student, and I wanted to be a veterinarian. But things work out the way they're supposed to, because I'm not supposed to be a veterinarian, but I love animals.
Yeah.
And I was discouraged from going to college, and I really wanted to go, but I didn't. They kind of pushed me, my parents, towards a community college just to get a trade so that I could take care of myself. But the main goal was to be going out. And there was a term when I was a Jehovah's Witness of people who weren't witnesses were goats, and people who were sheep. They were the followers of Christ.
Right.
And so I was to go out and turn the goats into sheep. And that's what my main goal was supposed to be, focusing on the kingdom of God as opposed to the earthly things. So I didn't go to college.
Sherri, this is such great stuff. So, I mean, I would be full of so much resentment at a certain point. Did you go through a period of anger about that stuff? Or did you just kind of like, you had other things to worry about, Is it one of those kind of things?
You know what, Nick? I guess because I'm such a spiritual person now, and I know there's this scripture in Romans somewhere, and it says, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and to the called according to his purpose. And I take that to mean that everything happens for a reason, even the bad things. You have to find the sliver of good or light in them. And maybe if I was doing something that I hated, or I was in a field that I just wasn't fulfilled, maybe I would be resentful. But because I didn't go to college and didn't get to go the path that I thought I was going to be going, I ended up going to a comedy club with a bunch of legal secretaries and sitting there watching Andrew Dice Clay. And a woman turned to me and she said, "You're as funny as he is." Because that's when he was on Hickory Dickory Dock. I had a girl on mic, and he was offending a lot of women.
Yeah,
and a bunch of women got really mad, and I was making them laugh before the show started. And I was with my legal secretary girlfriends, and she turned to me and she said, "You could do that." And I saw Charlie Fleischer and and Eddie Griffin went up, and I saw people laughing at stuff he said. And I said, this is why I am careful with how I talk to people, because you can build somebody up with what you say, or you can tear them down.
Sure.
And that woman planted a seed in my heart that made me go towards stand-up comedy.
Wow.
And forever, I wish I knew this lady's name or who she was, but she forever changed the trajectory of my life. So am I resentful that I didn't go to college? Sometimes, I do want to go get my degree. I do, but I'm not resentful because I'm doing something that I love and I think is my passion and my purpose in life.
And the other thing is you get to this stage, you're such a successful business person. What would you go get a degree for at this point? I mean, not to discourage you from doing it, but I'm just saying at a certain point, if we keep educating ourselves and we keep pursuing continuing to make ourselves essentially students of life and achievers, you essentially have given yourself, at least from my perspective, you've achieved essentially a degree. Not that you have the paper, but
you're right. As we get older,
sense, like you at a certain point, college is just there to get you more capable to be an achiever in life in whatever way, and you clearly were capable enough without college. Not that you couldn't have used some earlier direction and you didn't have to be kind of, you ran into a situation where thankfully you found your way out. You followed your heart and found your way out, but you could have been someone that got caught and went down the wrong road and stayed, never followed your heart and your passion. That's maybe something you might have discovered in college. You wouldn't have taken the wrong road, but you found your way out anyway. So maybe this is.
I think you're absolutely right. As we get older, life is kind of the degree that we have. But I think that for me, because college, I wanted to go so badly. I wanted the experience of joining a sorority. So even now, all my girlfriends are sorority members, and I will go to homecoming things, and I see the bonding and the fellowship. I think I would have probably found a little bit more of Sherri maybe quicker. And learn maybe some more life skills. I think I would have been exposed to different types of people and gotten different ideas about life, which I have gotten now because I'm older. I'm exposed to all kinds of people and I've traveled, across the world. But there's something where I just feel like I want to walk across that stage and I want to show my son that, you can do something like this when you put your mind to it.
That's really
step
cool.
out of your comfort zone. So
this is actually maybe more serious than I thought. Like you really do want to get this done.
It's very personal for me, and plus being a Black woman, so many Black people weren't allowed to go to college, and so in our community, it was just very important to get a degree.
Right.
Even my niece is in college now, and she's probably doing it just for her auntie. Because when she went to college, I went and signed her in. She's going to a historically Black college. And I was so excited. You'd have thought it was me. And I just was like, you're the first in the family to go to college. And it's probably so much pressure on her. She's in there for engineering. Right. And I think she really just wants to be free. But it's just something that's so important for me to walk. I just want to get my degree. What would I get it in? I don't know. I probably have enough credits to graduate tomorrow.
I mean, Sherri, you keep going the way you're getting. You're going to get an honorary degree somewhere.
Probably politics.
Seriously? Oh yeah. Would you go into politics?
I think cool. I would like to know more.
That's like a great curveball. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because you're very smart, but I didn't expect to hear that. So why?
Because I think when I co-hosted The View, and I knew that was another thing about being a Jehovah's Witness. We weren't allowed to vote. So Jehovah's Witnesses still don't vote because again, like I said, they feel like there's a scripture that says, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. And they felt, yes, we live in this world, but we're not about this earthly system of justice and law because we answer to a higher law and Armageddon is going to come. So they don't get caught up in all of this, what's going on today and what's going on now. I feel completely different. But when I first co-hosted The View, I knew nothing about politics. I made so many flubs and tearful, mistakes. To Howard Stern talked about me. Bill O'Reilly called me a pinhead. Bill Maher said they should fire me with a stupid stick.
So wow, what was the last one? I'm sorry, I talked right over it.
Bill Maher said I should be fired with the stupid stick.
What?
Because I made a flub and said I didn't know if the earth was round or flat. That was a brain fart.
You've told me about this one before.
We talked about this, but politics, I just didn't know. And so to have Barbara Walters look at me and go, you don't know anything about this world? And that was because I was Jehovah's Witness. We didn't vote, so I never learned about it. I learned about politics when I was on The View. That's when Obama first ran. And I had to literally sit and through my flubs and people talking about me. And that hurts when people call you stupid. And really Google.
For sure. You're you're doing things that I was learning in college. You're doing it in public show
on a forum with millions of people watching every day. I had to learn, and that was painful. And I had to learn, what is the two-party system? What is the House? What does the Senate do? What are the branches? Why do we have electoral college? What is Ukraine have to do with us? Why are we? I had to learn all of this stuff.
Wow.
by myself in my apartment after Bill Maher said I should be fired with a stupid stick, or Bill O'Reilly, called me the pinhead and people made fun of me. Wendy Williams said I could be replaced. What did Wendy say? She said a paper bag could replace me. Wow. So for me, now I love talking politics because I learned it, and in my day I'm on the computer reading about politics, and I'm up on everything, and I vote. I wasn't able to vote. I voted the first time when Obama ran, and I took Jeffrey in the booth with me, and I cried. We almost became Republicans because he almost hit that wrong button. He was having a temper tantrum at the time, and we almost went the wrong party.
That's a brutal mistake to make on your first vote.
I was like, what are you doing? Don't touch that lever. But I learned about politics and how voting affects my son and how voting affects my community. Wow. And so for me, going to college and learning the nuances and, more about politics and the history of it and how it relates to me as an African-American woman, I want to do that.
That's really cool, man. I mean, you know what? This is actually a really good place to take a breather, but I loved hearing that story. I feel like I have 3 different things I want to ask, and I don't know which one to start, so I'm going to think through that. And we're at our last break. We'll be right back with Sherri. All right, everybody, welcome back. Sherri, I was just telling you at the break, I was like, I want to talk to you more about that experience you went through on The View, but on some levels, I feel like you've kind of answered a lot of my questions about it. I mean, you were really honest about what you experienced. And I think I want to get back to this question, which is, I still feel like I want to know more about the final story as it came out, with the death of your mother, and then where it left you and your sisters. And did either of them stay a witness?
No, they're both Christians.
Okay.
They both go to church.
And did that officially happen for them after your mother's death? Or did they, did they kind of stay in it for a while as long as your mother was in it? And then when your mother died, they kind of were able to leave it?
I think it wasn't that they stayed in it. They just didn't know. We were taught that going to a church was wrong. I mean, the church is basically, not the true religion. It was being a Jehovah's Witness. So kind of it was like a superstitious to go to a church because we kind of felt like it was from the devil.
Wow.
So
that's amazing to say that like a Baptist church isn't Christian enough. Isn't religious enough.
Because Jehovah's Witnesses are Christian.
It just blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't think a Jehovah's Witness will say it's evil, but there's different fundamental differences with the Christian faith and being a Jehovah's Witness. Number one, Christians believe in the Trinity, the God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus. Right. It's 3 separate people, but they're one. Jehovah's Witnesses do not. So
what do they believe?
Big fundamental difference,
What's the core difference there? Do they don't believe in a Holy Spirit?
Jehovah's Witnesses, if I remember the scripture, Hebrews 11:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God." That's what it says in the Bible that the Jehovah's Witnesses use. And in the Bible, the New Translation of the King James Version, any of the versions of the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was a God. So that little A makes it separate. So that difference of the Jehovah's Witnesses believe you have God and you have his son, Jesus, who is actually Michael, the archangel. And then the Holy Spirit is part of God. It's like the breath of God, the Holy Spirit.
Really? Michael the Archangel? Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus and Michael are
the same.
They're like, he's Michael reincarnated or something like that?
So he was Michael and he came down as Jesus.
Whoa.
And so in Christians now, ask your friend if it has changed, because that's what we were taught. And then over here, it's like the Holy Spirit is an actual kind of person who can help you, do things. And Jesus is a person, and God is also Jesus's father, but they're still all one, but they're three individuals. Wow. So right there, you got, we're believing in the Trinity, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are not. Also, just your holidays, like my girlfriend, when I tell her my Christmas movie aired yesterday. And
I forgot to mention this. This is Twas the Chaos Before Christmas.
The Chaos Before Christmas. And so she will not watch it because it's a Christmas movie.
Wow.
And so going back to celebrating holidays was something that I was very scared to do. Celebrating a Halloween or Christmas or birthdays.
Wow, right, of course. This guy, he doesn't even you still are not supposed to give him presents on his birthday.
Absolutely.
Even though he's not a Jehovah's Witness anymore.
But you still have those tenets in your mind.
Yes.
And you still think, so even if you ask me, Nick, what is Easter? I kind of don't know.
Wow.
Because I never really got into it because I still remember we never celebrated Easter.
Right.
So I never really, some of those things are in my head of being a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay, that's great. So how old are you when you are like in this office hanging out with these women and one of them tells you like you could do this as a comedian? Like, how old are you?
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I was in my 20s.
And this is the first time that you start going out? No, you had kind of like...
I was a legal secretary, and when I left, I had this thing, and I called all of the 8 secretaries that I had gone with, and I said, do you think this is something I can do? And 7 of them said, no, it's going to take you 10 to 20 years to make it. You're not going to make any money. You make a great salary.
Isn't that amazing?
I was making $41,000, including overtime as a legal secretary. You got your 401 pension. No, don't do it, because when you're in the business, you starve. And the 8th woman, Danetta Thomas, she said, Sherri, if you don't try it, you'll never know. And that's been my mantra. If you don't try it, you'll never know. And consequently, Danetta, because of me, when I used that and that was my impetus to do it, she quit being a legal secretary. She always wanted to be a real estate agent. She left LA, moved to Arizona. Now her face is on billboards everywhere. And she's one of the hottest real estate agents in Arizona because of me. I love her. But that was my impetus when she said, you'll never know. And I borrowed money from all those secretaries, even though they told me not to do it. They believed in me because my check was always getting garnished because I thought the Armageddon was coming, so I never paid my bills. We'll have to do another podcast when I tell you I went to jail for 8 days. I already told you. Like
you told me this off. I remember this, but I
thought Armageddon was coming, and I never paid my bills. And when I would get tickets, I throw them in my glove compartment, and Armageddon never came, and I had warrants, and I went to jail for 8 days. But that's neither.
Real Sherri.
So they were always garnishing my check.
I love this
story. I started stand-up comedy class. It was $600, and I didn't have it because the IRS had garnished my check. But every single secretary that told me not to do it gave me money. And they invested in me. And I took a comedy class with Judy Brown. And I learned not how to be funny, but to take those little things that people laughed at and craft them into a joke, and how to hold a microphone. And I made my debut at a comedy club in Encino called La Cabaret. It's gone. And every secretary and lawyer at the law firm came to see me perform. And that was the first time I got on stage. And my first joke was, I was dating a man, and Valentine's Day came, and he came home, and I said, babe, where are my flowers? And he said, I was going to get you some flowers, but the light turned green. That was my very first joke. And when I heard people laugh, I never stopped. I never got off that stage.
Sherri.
And those secretaries and lawyers supported me. They've all come to both my weddings, and they are my biggest fans. I brought one of the secretaries onto The View. She had breast cancer, and I was able to bring her onto The View to talk about it. And my lawyers that I used to work for became my lawyers. When I incorporated, they've always supported me, and they're still there, but they've always stood behind me and believed in me.
That's amazing, Sherri. It's an amazing story. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. I mean,
you have to step past the fear. This is a business that we're in. It's a lot of fear. And you have to, I say, if it scares you, run towards it. That's been my mantra for life. Why I do things like a masked singer when I know good and damn well I can't sing. And,
but you had fun.
But I had fun, because it scared me. And why I did a Dancing with the Stars, because it scared me, because I'm not a dancer. And that's just been everything in life. If it scares me, I'm going to go and run towards it, because you have the most wonderful experiences. Even if you fail, you have an experience and you have a memory, and at least you can say, I tried it. Because failure just is an opportunity to get back up and try it again.
Right.
It's when you don't try it and you stay in the fear, then you don't know. It's always a what if.
I mean, you have an amazing resilience, and you must get that from your dad too, because your dad clearly had an amazing resilience. I
got it from my dad. I did.
I mean, clearly. Dude just sounds like, it's a different time. And first of all, it's a totally different life experience, right? I'm a white kid, grew up in suburban Omaha, and he was a black guy, that moved out to the white suburbs to try to make a better life for himself. I mean, that's, first of all, something I can't intuit that.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, it's just a dude who was like, at the same time, my father worked hard. I mean, I can see that the generation of a guy who didn't come from any money and had to work really hard,
right,
sacrificed a lot to make something for his family. That is a universal thing.
Absolutely.
And so, that's just really impressive. It's impressive to hear about that. And clearly you got that from him, because you, at a young age, you're wrapped into some really strong, interesting worlds. I mean,
well, I will say this about my dad. I love him so much. My dad he's Alzheimer's.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's, it's so funny because I get up on stage and I talk about it and make it funny. And I relay a story to the audience of my dad was always a fighter. He grew up in the inner city in the projects of Chicago, and he always had to fight. He wore glasses. He had to fight. And so I remember running home from a fight because a girl beat me up and I ran. My sister jumped on her and bit her in the back. She was like a pit bull, but I ran and even left my sister there. And my dad made me go to the girl's house and fight her again. And him and my mom had a wine cooler, pink champagne, and they took the pink champagne and the other parents, and he made me go fight this girl. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, I got beat up the first time. So now you're making me go get beat up the second. Like, what am I supposed to get from this? I was so mad. And they sat there and they put on some Marvin Gaye or Al Green. And my father said to me, and if you run, I'm going to beat you behind. Like, we shepherds don't run from a fight. So I had to fight this girl like freaking, it was like 300, like Spartacus. I got beat up again. Tammy Lou Zavardi. She beat me up again. And I remember I was crying, and my dad came and he said, I'm so proud of you. And I'm looking up and I'm going, what are you talking about? You're proud of me, Dad. And he goes, because when life kicks you in the butt, you'll get back up and you'll fight.
Wow.
And you're not going to run. I never got that. Now I get it. I get it, exactly what he was talking about. Wow. And I think it was kind of a crude way to do it and a little bit of a barbaric way to do it.
Yeah, it's harsh.
But wow. I get the example, and I really appreciate my dad even now when he tells me, if he talks to you now, Nick, he'll go, I could have managed my daughter. I was going to be my daughter's manager, but I decided to step back. And he'll tell you that story 24 times. So I really have an appreciation for my father. And I see why I make such sacrifices for my son, because at the end of the day, I want my son to look up at me and say, my mom, number one, I was her priority.
Yeah.
I was her priority. But she did what she loved, because I hope that my son will do what he loves, because my dad didn't. He did things that he didn't love so that I would be here to do what I loved. So I honor that man, and I'm so thankful for the things that he taught me, even now in his, state where sometimes he can't remember things. But he's a great guy. Yeah. He's a really great guy.
Wow, Sherri. I've always been so impressed by you, getting to know you on the set. I mean, of course, I've never gotten to know you outside of that, but I was always thankful that one of my great joys of being on set was that I was on set all the time. So I got to know everybody.
Absolutely.
But you just, I'm so happy that you came in to talk about this, because there's a lot, you're just filling in a lot of these stories that I didn't know before. But it's such I keep saying that I'm impressed because I think it's because I had it a lot easier, I think.
But it's just a different experience. I don't know if anybody's harder or it's different, you know,
Yeah.
and which is the beauty of people being friends, you know. And I think one of the other things about my father is he was always grateful. And even in him sacrificing and not being able to do, I think that's why we always have to look at the bigger picture. It's not always about us. Because had he not did what he did, I don't know if I'd be doing what I'd be doing.
Right.
Had he gone the route that, you know, so maybe in that thing of God he's got a plan for everything, no matter what, is that he knew, yeah, son, you're not going to get to do this because the generation that comes after you, I got a plan for that girl that is your daughter. Right. You know? And I think my father, if you asked him, he probably would go, I'd do it all over again, that same exact way. Wow. You know, so I don't know, in this whole big system of things.
Man, that's great. I mean, I don't want to end. I don't have to end yet. Show's not,
but you got to go get dinner. No, you got to wake up hard.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if he is awake right now. My little boy's taking a nap while we're doing this interview. I have 5 or 6 more minutes, so I'm going to take it. One question I wanted to ask you. I don't exactly know which way this is going to take us, but you have such a hopeful story. What moments in your life, or was there a moment in your life where it was the most kind of like despair, where like some of these things, because on some levels, you know, you talk about a lot of challenging things. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, it's like, from my perspective, I was like, boy, you could have been despairing a lot. Right. You know, I mean, you had a lot of challenges. But also, and I know some of this is more public, right? You know, this was stuff that got aired on The View and stuff. You had a divorce and stuff like that was very public. Yeah. And you and I have talked about that outside. We don't have to go down all that road. Maybe that's the story, but I guess I'm just asking because you have such resilience. I wonder when you think back at the moments where you were, you know, is there a moment where you're like, that was the hardest moment?
There were 2 moments. One was when Jeffrey was born at 25 weeks.
Right. I remember talking to you about this. He was super early. Because my son was early, but not that early.
Yeah. He was born at 25. He was 1 pound, 10 ounces. Yeah. My wedding ring fit on his arm. Wow. And they told me.
I mean, that's shocking.
It was so crazy. And they told us, because we were going to pull the plug, because they said Jeffrey, he had brain bleeding on both sides. He was going to have shunts in his brain. They said he would have severe cerebral palsy. At the time, they were using the word retarded. We don't use that word anymore, but he would be mentally challenged. He probably wouldn't be able to walk. And we decided to, and I had lost his twin sister when I was pregnant. So we decided to pull the plug. I forgot about that. And God came through with a miracle, literally, before they were going to pull the plug. He had a hole in his stomach, and his intestines were becoming septic. And it was all black and blue and bruised up, and he couldn't move. And I remember going in, and his dad said, son, your mother's here. Now, Jeffrey couldn't move before. He was completely comatose. And his hand came up and gripped the ventilator, too, when he said, your mom was here. And then we put a little outfit on him because they were going to disconnect the breathing tube so he could take his last breath in my arms. And I just was crying, going, Lord, you know, I've wanted this child for so long. This is such a miracle. And gosh, and we're sending him to heaven. And so right before they're going to disconnect the ventilator tube, the head of the neonatal intensive care guy, the chief guy, came in and said, we did another ultrasound, and the hole in his intestines is healed. It's cleared up. Wow. So his stomach was completely brown. I call it my little chocolate drop. No bruising, no nothing. So we didn't pull the plug. But they told us he would be in a wheelchair, all this other crazy stuff. And I remember his dad said, whatever package he's wrapped in, we'll take it. And my son doesn't have cerebral palsy. He's not mentally challenged. He has developmental delays. So cognitively, there's quite a few issues. But he is a fighter. This boy is so smart. And sometimes I go, I don't even know if you got any kind of special needs. I think you just been scamming me. But he's such the light of my life. I didn't talk for a year because I just didn't know how to deal with this boy who was having seizures in his brain and all this stuff. And he was 4 pounds when he came home. And I was just in despair. And my dad said to me, he said, you got to take the sherry. I said, I don't think I'll ever be able to smile again, Dad.
Oh, my gosh.
And my dad said, you got to take that sherry that everybody knows and loves, put her on the shelf with the fine china, and just be a mother. And so for a year, I just doted on my son and learned how to deal with this boy who's very unique. When he plays soccer with other kids, he's on one end of the field break dancing. And I've learned everybody else is running.
I know Jeffrey. He's
you know
awesome.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to say, Jeffrey, you gonna break dance. You gone, baby. You know, when he's running track, when he was with the track team, when we were in Jersey, they were running one way, Jeffrey was running the other. And I said, you don't hit the light pole. He'll finish the heat when he finishes. And I've learned to embrace every unique challenge about my son.
Wow.
And he's very funny and he's intuitive and he's just different. And I've learned to say, that's okay. He met John Lithgow and John leaned into him and he had given Jeffrey a book and Jeffrey goes, you look older than in the book. And I was like, oh my gosh. And John says, you're very intuitive. Like the fact that you noticed that. And I'm like, wow, you put a spin on it, John, which is why I love John Lithgow.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was one where I was just deep in despair. But God gave me what he felt I needed. I'm such a nurturer. And then the second one is when I went through my second divorce. And the public thought one thing about me, and I knew it wasn't true. But literally God again in his very white voice said, be quiet. I will defend you. So I never got back and, it wasn't a back and forth. It was just very brutal with fans saying, reading little tabloid things and saying, I hate you. I'm not a fan. You're a horrible mother. To have to take these things. It was just awful. But I worked my way through it. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, you're a very optimistic person, and that's very clear. I think it's really shocking to me. I think I gotta say it's kind of terrifying to me, like how much of your life has been lived in front of so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, we both are we're in a public profession. I'm not. It's no surprise, but it's not like if I did something or said something wacky or something.
Right.
But I'm very cautious. I'm very, and you went on a show and it's almost like you didn't even know what you didn't know, maybe. Like you're you're so funny and so charming. Like it makes sense why you would be on the show, but in some levels, like you didn't know about certain things, and you were set up to be hurt in some ways, and to have to do all of that in front of millions of people is really, it's really turns my stomach a little bit to think about it happening to me, and yet at the same time, here you are, like you're not afraid to be out in front of people that has not ever penetrated you enough to like make you quit or anything. I mean, that's so clear.
Because I think, Nick, I have found as I get older, being the age that I am, as long as you're alive and you can wiggle your fingers and toes and get up, it's always another chance. It's always another chance to get it right or do something different. It's, and it's so little. Life is too short. And you realize as you get older, that very thing that was so, big, it's really so tiny. In the microcosm of life, it really is a little thing. You know what's important? The people that you love, the people that love you. You know what's important? That little boy that wakes up and goes, Daddy. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing.
That's right.
And I learned not to pay attention to people because as long as my son is the one that's going, Mom, I love you. Mom, I love these pancakes. Or my dad, when he says, I'm proud of you, daughter. That's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Everything else is just like, it's like a little gnat on my arm. And that's what I have learned. And so I can get up and smile because the things that you have to figure out what's really important. And once you know the why, everything's it's gravy.
Sherri, I love you. Thank you so
you
much for being here.
This is great.
Man.
Now I got to go see Harkin.
All right, let's go. Let's go see if my son is awake. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for listening.